Live from New York. Yeah, I always wanted to start that way. Game one, the WNBA Playoffs underway. I'm here with Jackie Powell. We're here to talk all about Liberty Dream, what we learned, and what is ahead. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Very happy Sunday to you. Here a little bit early for you because the WNBA playoffs are here underway. I'm Howard Megdal.
And I'm Jackie Powell.
And welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 200,000 of you listened in August alone. You're on track to pass that here in September. Thank you so much for showing up for us the way we show up for you. 6 days a week. The great Russ Steinberg here in the crowd. Good to see you, Russ, as well. John Paul Jones stopped by. Everyone in a festive atmosphere here because it is the playoffs. It is, of course, not just me, not even just Jackie, right? It is the entire team over at thenexthoops.com, where we have over 100 reported pieces every single month dedicated to the past, present, and future of women's basketball. Go ahead and subscribe. $9 a month, $72 a year. Thenexthoops.com. Get them all delivered to your inbox. So I have to worry about tracking it down. We'll send it to you. We've got it coming. If you are a subscriber, you have seen the sheer massive amount today alone. Thenexthoops.com. We all care about it. We're junkies like you are. So go ahead and join us. And so this afternoon, a game, I would say, Jackie, a little bit more for the junkies than for, let us say, those looking for drama. Liberty out early and very strong. Liberty ultimately come away with an 83-69 victory. Not a lot of drama in this one. What did you make of the start of this team? We'll get into whether it's Leonie Feibich, talking about her in segment 1, Tina Charles and Rhyne Howard in segment 2, and what the Dream need to do to turn it around in segment 3. What was just sort of that initial impression for you?
Well, before I answer that question, I will say the only bit of drama that I really noticed was it happened in the second half when Leonie Hamilton blew a kiss to her defender after making a tough shot, but it was a classic Leonie Hamilton type. It was, I think it was some sort of like turnaround spin. I've written before that the way she plays is very much so like how a dancer dances. Yeah. So it was classic B. And so seeing her blow that kiss, I mean, it just goes to show how confident and fired up the Liberty were. So that's how I'm answering your question there, Howard.
No, I love that. And by the way, I just, the level of joy, again, we talked about JJ just stopping in to say hello. Like, it wasn't just so much, hey, here's a victory, right? This was an opportunity for the Liberty to sort of sound a keynote on what they hope, plan, believe will be ultimately a march to the championship. Obviously, a long way to go in order to get there, and a lot of teams who are going to battle them, but truly going to be fascinating to see how and whether they're able to do that. They certainly are bringing the right intensity to it, and they also brought, I have to say, the right starting lineup. And I know you're hard at work on a piece about this decision today. Take us through what we know about the decision, not, let us say, the most intuitive one necessarily, to start Leonie Feibich over Courtney Vandersloot.
So the most intuitive reason is, and this isn't the reason we were told, and I'm going to make that very clear. So the more intuitive reason was, okay, you have an opportunity to put Leonie Feibich on Rhyne Howard, because you think about who Rhyne is as a wing, as a scorer, as a player. She's maybe 6'2", 6'3". She's a bit longer than Leonie Hamilton, who usually is put on her.
Right.
Putting Leonie Feibich in the starting lineup, that allows Leonie Hamilton to guard at the point of attack and to essentially make Jordan Canada's life very difficult. Right. And she picked her up close to 90 feet. If we take a look at Jordan Canada, she was 1 for 4 from the field, 4 assists, and how many points? And 3 points.
And again, the point that we should make, and Jordan's been on the show just recently, is that the Atlanta Dream, and this is what was so interesting to me, coming into this series, were not the Atlanta Dream of the collection of their record over the course of the season. Jordan Canada missed the first half of the year due to injury. Ryan Howard missed significant chunks of time during the year. This is a team that's seen Tina Charles take an increasingly larger role and play, frankly, like the vintage Tina that I covered a decade ago. I mean, it's just been this great thing to see. I will just, as sort of a side note, we'll get into this in segment 2 for sure, but that we get Tina Charles again for a period of time is a very big deal in the history of this league. But so you put all that together, and this was not an obvious, okay, we'll just continue to play the way you've played the Dream over the course of the year. This is a different Dream team coming in. And so having B on Jordan Canada felt like a big deal, but I mean, we just got to talk about the fact that you couldn't have asked for a better result immediately than what Leo brought them on both ends of the floor, right?
Right. And that also brings me to the less intuitive reason for this, which was the reason that Courtney shared with us just now in the scrum, which is essentially the Liberty wanted to, I guess, balance their offense a little bit more. They wanted to have more situations where you could have 2 ball handlers on the floor and to give Betnijah Laney Hamilton a little bit of respite, a little bit of rest, and to sort of manage the amount of time she's on the floor. That was sort of the reason that Courtney Vandersloot gave to us, which makes sense.
Sure does.
But when it comes to Leonie Fiebich, I mean, she did not miss a shot until late in the third quarter, I want to say.
It's true. And held Ryan Howard without a field goal. And again, you know, I talked to Ryan about this a little bit in the first half. That's right. And Ryan found her rhythm, as she will. I mean, she's one of the great players in this league. This is somebody who, in the playoff opener last year, scored 36 points. I think she is underappreciated, let us say, and I'm always so suspect about that, because how do you even measure it? But I do. I think this is somebody who is legit one of the elite players in this league. And I say all that to say that for Leo to hold her without a field goal for a half as a defensive assignment while she is putting that number of points on the board on the offensive end in what was her first playoff game as a starter, it is an incredible accomplishment and something remarkable to see. So I think you've broken that down really well. I just want to think about sort of spin it forward. And as we talk about, well, my goodness, knowing that this works, knowing that you have now this is in Sandy Brondello's bag of tricks now to use for the remainder of the series and indeed for the playoffs. How much does this, let's say, revise the Liberty ceiling upward a bit, which I know is a hard thing to do with a team that's already a number 1 overall seed, but it just seems to add an extra layer of matchup problems for anyone they face.
Oh, for sure. And I think what we saw in this game, and I think Tanisha Wright spoke to us about this, was that the Liberty played with much more intention defensively. They were much more physical. They were flying around. They were the ones setting the tone physically and defensively. And so we talk a lot about last year's playoff run. And even in that first series against the Washington Mystics, it was the Mystics that set the tone physically.
That's true.
And they wore the Liberty down. And so the Liberty were like, nope, that's not happening to us this year. We are setting the tone. This is our home building.
It's been a theme you've gone through again and again in your excellent coverage of the New York Liberty, which is that this year 2 is not year 1, and that a lot of the lessons learned by that trip to the finals, which I would argue and have argued in the 9, was a bit ahead of schedule.
Correct.
I mean, to do that in year 1 of a group coming together is a very big deal, but it has set them up really nicely here for what is frankly, a team that's going to be difficult for anyone to beat. But we're going to talk about the ways that Atlanta needs to go about doing it, what worked, what didn't work in game 1, and of course, the Atlanta Dream. And this is just the nature of especially that 3-game series that opens the playoffs for everyone. You go from, well, you're playing a playoff opener on Sunday. Well, Tuesday, they're playing for their season's life. So back with much more, the great Jackie Powell here. I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. But first, Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by FanDuel and NFL fans. The NFL is it's a football league, a professional football league that happens. There's some overlap with, as I understand it, the WNBA, and then in November, obviously, we'll be watching a lot of NCAA women's basketball, but it still continues on. So it's the National Football League. Look it up. And so you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. Now, listen to this. This is what they give you the opportunity to do. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, $200 in bonus bets. All you got to do is place one $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel.com. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com, where, like I said, not just the WNBA, although they have WNBA odds, but obscure sports like the NFL too. FanDuel.com. Locked On Women's Basketball is also brought to you by Magic Spoon. And this morning, I knew I needed a lot of energy, I needed a lot of protein, and I needed to avoid a lot of sugar ahead of taking the trip to go cover the WNBA. And that's where Magic Spoon came in. As a kid, I loved eating cereal no matter what, but as an adult, I have to pay closer attention to, all right, I don't want all that sugar. I want that protein. How do I make sure that I'm eating the right way? Well, Magic Spoon's the way to do it. And now, even better, okay, if you take cereal and milk on a train, it could spill all over you. But Magic Spoon offers a new opportunity for people like us. They have these cereal bars.
Oh, I love those.
It's amazing. They're light, crispy, and they taste just like those classic crunchy cereal bars. But again, emphasis on the lower sugar, the more protein. They're so delicious. And again, a very big deal for those of us, and we are both among them, who are on the go, especially this time of year, covering the WNBA. So now I want you to try them and get an extra discount. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/locked on. Again, magicspoon.com/locked on. Get you $5 off your next order. Magic Spoon, hold on to the childhood dream, even if you're an old like me.
I love even the blueberry ones.
Oh,
like
yeah.
all the flavors are just really good.
They do an
Like,
excellent job.
You cannot go wrong.
They put the magic in Magic Spoon. So we are back, segment 2, and we are looking at the Atlanta Dream side of what was an 83-69 victory for the New York Liberty. And so, again, as somebody who's done this a minute, I remember well what it felt like to cover Tina Charles in a playoff game in New York City. And so I just want to take a moment and point out that the first half felt like that. Tina came, she understood, she said something post-game when I was asking her about it, about, she's been doing this a while, and, said it kind of meaningfully. So I think we've both been doing this for a while. And so she knows what it means to be in this playoff moment. She's done it back when the Liberty played at Madison Square Garden, as a matter of fact. And she was in double figures. She brought an energy that, and she said it, and Tanisha Wright, who, by the way, played with her in some of those games as well, and now is her coach, that wasn't necessarily matched, especially the physicality across the board. Jackie, did you feel as if there was something team-wide that was missing from the Atlanta Dream here today? And how surprising was that seeing here in game 1?
I think for me, it was essentially Tina was ready, and the rest of the team really wasn't. In the second half, Rhyne Howard woke up a little bit more and was like, oh, wait, I am the franchise player of this team. I have to perform better. But what was really striking to me was the Atlanta Dream function best when you have Tina in a dual role of scoring and facilitating. And let's take a look. Let's see if I'm correct. Tina had no assists in this game.
Yeah. Tina, one of the best passing bigs in the history of the league. And so, again, when you think about that, though, it goes two ways, right? It isn't just, oh, what was Atlanta not doing? There are two teams on the floor.
Right.
And again, you've got to hand it to Sandy Brondella for this defensive game plan
Mhm.
that really did it. I mean, I remember you kept saying to me as we're watching this in the first half, that's the shot they want Tina to take. That's the shot they want. And it's true. You're not going to deny Tina Charles the ability to get a look, but how can you control what kind of look she gets? This was a thing, frankly, that was used against the mid 2010s Liberty too, right?
Of
That
course.
Tina was somebody who was not going to be stopped, but could you make it as hard as possible for her and cut off her passing lanes to everybody else? And I think we saw a lot of that happen, which was fascinating to see. I do want to mention just about Ezzy Kalu, who got the chance to play in her first WNBA playoff game just a few days after signing a WNBA contract for the first time. Make sure you check out. I have a short with her. I'm going to post it very shortly as well this afternoon, just to hear, Newark, New Jersey's own, by way of playing for the Nigerian national team, is back here. Just a whirlwind of a 2024 for her. Everyone is so excited for her. And Brianna Stewart, too, just made a point of going over to her, congratulating her, welcoming her to the league. She, want to hear about sort of that conversation. But, seeing her get this opportunity, Tina answered a question late on in this, take us through sort of what her thought was about the fact that Tanisha Wright made the decision essentially late in the third quarter with about a 20-point lead that, all right, time to empty the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tina essentially took the time to praise her teammates. She took the time to praise Letitia Amihir, who has not gotten a lot of opportunities this season, but Tina was sitting there and saying, hey, like, I thought she gave us good energy. She was playing hard. And that was something that this was missing from a lot of the starters. And so Tina Charles was very, how do I put it? She was very quick to say that was how she felt. And it's interesting because, you follow these players on social media, you sort of see what they're doing, who they're hanging out with. And it didn't surprise me that Tina shouted out Letitia Amihir because the two of them have been hanging out together a lot. And it's really interesting because Amihir is a sophomore. And so Tina is able to make these connections with these younger players, and she's able to pour into them in very meaningful ways.
It is fascinating to consider her legacy and how it's continued. I don't know what the future holds for Tina Charles, but what she has showed down the stretch here is not just an ability to score and put points on the board, but to manifest her game in all the ways that she's done at her very best. And there's no loss of efficiency as she's done so down the stretch here. They're going to need more of it from her, though.
6 for 12.
6 for 12 today. But so when we talk segment 3, it's going to be all about what do they need? What does the Atlanta Dream? What do the Atlanta Dream need to do in order to get this game back to a game 3 in Atlanta? Coming up on, is it Thursday or Friday night? What would be? It would be the Thursday night would be the game 3. Do we know?
Yes, Thursday night would be the game.
So to get it back to that game 3. So back in just a moment to talk about that. I'm Howard Megdal.
And I'm Jackie Powell.
And this is Locked on Women's Basketball. Locked on Women's Basketball is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your car alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. More important for me, because I don't care about any of it. I just need to make sure, does my car get me to the game I need to cover? eBay's got this eBay guaranteed fit. So your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. It's this little green check mark. And I'm truly I don't know anything about cars, but eBay Motors does. They check it. They make sure for me, they make sure it's at the price I'm looking to pay and the car works. It's all I'm looking for. That's how easy it is to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. Truly, like NJ Transit needs to work. My car needs to work. eBay Motors. I wish eBay Motors could take care of New Jersey Transit too, but oh well. We'll take what we can get. So back here in segment 3, Howard Megdal here with Jackie Powell talking about what does Atlanta need to do. And I'll say a couple of things, right? Number one, Tanisha Wright mentioned the idea that this is a team that needed to bring more intensity from the start. She said, she used the phrase at the end, I thought it was absolutely true. They punched us in the mouth. And Tanisha Wright knows all about teams that do that. She played for Bill and Beer teams that would go out of the way to make sure they did. That isn't what happened here. What do you think is the single biggest thing Atlanta needs to do right in the first quarter of game 2?
Well, I'm looking at this box score, which conveniently we have right here because we are sitting at the podium.
That is correct.
And I'm looking at Alicia Gray. You know, you say, okay, Tina Charles, Rhyne Howard, that's the big two, but
right.
Alicia Gray is a big part of this Atlanta Dream offense.
No doubt.
And so she got 9 shots. She made 3 of them. So 9 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. It was interesting. I saw some conversation online about how, okay, Sandy Brondello took a bet that Sabrina Ionescu could hold her own against Alicia Gray. There were some moments where Alicia Gray beat Sabrina Ionescu, but for Sabrina Ionescu to hold her, I guess, primary assignment, 3 for 9, that's not bad.
You see, if you would ask the Liberty pregame, I'm sure they would have signed up for that in a second. And Sabrina, of course, 17 points, a really solid game. I just up and down the roster, you just saw people come in and contribute. And that's sort of the last place where I do want to make sure that we talk, which is that it seems like the Liberty are utilizing things a little differently here on the bench side and how deep they go. What did you see from that? And more specifically, how much is that now a strength that Atlanta is going to have trouble matching in game 2?
Oh, man. I mean, I'm just looking at the minutes here. So essentially, Sandy Brondello played 6, 7, 8, 9. She played a 9-player rotation.
That's right.
In the first round of the playoffs. And to me, it really felt like this was a regular season rotation because Sandy usually plays or would usually play around 9 or 10. And, last season, we were lucky if they ever got to 9 or 10, just because of the nature of how that roster was constructed. The pieces weren't as complementary. The starters were also learning each other. I mean, the starters played so many minutes together last year. And so what's really interesting about the Liberty's bench unit is that they're very defensive minded and, they can sort of plug and play with these folks. I mean, Kennedy Burke wasn't hitting her shots, but the fact that she knew what to do, she would get her hands into some passing lanes and then be in the right spot to be open on, the wing. That's important to this team.
Yeah, no doubt.
You have... now you have Courtney Vandersloot coming in off the bench, which is a wild thing to say, but...
I will just say, she passed Sue Bird for most career playoff assists.
Correct.
Coming off the bench today. That's just a luxury they have.
And it was a beautiful pass that she found Brianna Stewart. And the thing I want to say about
Take note,
this...
Daniel Jones. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, take note. But it was at a really interesting time. The Dream were sort of trying to climb their way back. It was pretty much so a 20-point game for a while. The Dream were about to make it to maybe 14, 13.
It was 73-59. Yeah.
They had some life in them. And Courtney Vandersloot's in the game. She drives the ball through the lane and she missed the layup. I see her come down and grab at sort of her, I don't know if it was her knee or maybe her her thigh.
Mhm.
She felt something, and I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
no, please. And then all of a sudden, I see her zip up the court and find a way to get her hands on the ball, steal it, and then whip the ball to Brianna Stewart on the other side. It was a pretty impressive sequence.
It's very, I get emotional this time of year because there's this sense of, you don't know how long you're going to be able to see these players play. And I talked about with Tina, but with Courtney Vandersloot, one of the best point guards I've ever had the privilege of covering, being able to see her contribute and be part of this team. And again, in a way that, seamlessly took what is a brand new role for her, I thought was really significant. So I can't wait to read both sides of that story from you as well over at thenetshoops.com. You guys are all check it out or sign up. You get it right to your inbox. I mean, what's a better luxury than that? Every time you get to take a journey with Jackie Powell is a good time to do it. So
yes.
every time.
One thing I will say before we
Please.
sign off is I kept saying to Howard when we were watching this game, I was like, wow, the beginning of this game was so poetic. And I just want to tell you all why.
Please.
And so the first play of the game, it is Sabrina Ionescu gets the ball. She drives on Jordan Canada. Jordan Canada trips a little bit. And she puts, her little signature floater up and it falls.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next play down on the other side, it's Tina Charles with a signature, I don't know, it was some sort of like step back. It was one of her very Tina-esque shots.
Tina being Tina.
Tina being Tina.
Yeah.
And Sabrina being Sabrina. And as someone who has covered this franchise going from Tina Charles to Sabrina Ionescu, it just gave me a real feeling of sort of seeing this league evolve, right before our eyes.
Yeah. And again, before a sellout crowd of 12,115. It's the evolution of this league. As I was coming up the escalator for Barclays Center, coming off the subway today, I was like, wow, this is not Westchester. Things have really, really changed and very much for the better. Well, thank you so much for making us your first listen every day. We'll be back with you tomorrow. We'll be back with you all week. We're going to be coming to you every which way you can imagine. We have folks all over it, every playoff game, giving you locked on shorts, giving you inside access and knowledge. The great Gigi Spears going to be giving you all the information that you need to know every single day. Follow us on YouTube. It's a really impressive way to be able to fully understand the breadth of reporting that's going on here. And after game 2, we'll come to you again as we will throughout the postseason here in New York. We'll see how long it goes. If they play like they did today, it's going to go all the way to the end. So until then, I am Howard Megdal.
And I'm Jackie Powell.
And we're wishing all of you a wonderful Sunday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.